So,
Yes,
is there any disturbance in the audio side, sir? Is it okay?
yeah, it's okay, ma'am.
Okay. So oh, fine. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So today I am going to take. Before that, I would like to know: is there any break in between, sir? So
Yes, ma'am. By 11 o'clock to we have a break till 11:15.
okay, another in between 15 minutes break. Okay, fine. Thank you. So I would like to start my session. So I have today's topic is PCB for IoT applications. So we'll see about the what kinds of PCBs used in IoT applications and what types of technology can be implied in the case of IoT products, and we'll see the demonstration of the PCB, how we can do the PCB in the later end of the presentations. So I will take the one open source PCB design software, and I will show just a simple circuit how to approach the PCB design process. So initially, for first 1 hour, I'll go to this IoT general orientation about the IoT and kinds of technology used in this IoT applications related to the PCB level. So my agenda of this presentation goes like this. So we'll see about the introduction, device challenges, and applications related to the IoT, and PCB technology that can be implemented in the IoT, that is flux, rigid, and HDA. These are all the technologies this can be implied. Apart from that, there may be a rigid board. So it can be depends upon the application and the installation environment. And subsequently we'll see the EMI measurements and testing, and it's important for the environment. So let's see about the introduction part. So IoT is Internet of Things. That is, this IoT technology has brought revolution to the each and every fields of common man's life by making smart and intelligent way. That is, it is a system of interconnection with the transfer of data over the internet network. That is, we can say that it is a crossover between the physical and the digital data communication, that is a digital data world. So most common example we see everywhere is the smartphones, which is controlling the various home-based applications or or whatever the industrial-based applications. So we can control the IoT application with the help of the smart thing. That is the transfer of data over the internet. Other some of the applications are online train status viewing, and other industrial automation process. So everything we see now as an implementation of IoT applications. So based on some of the criteria, we can categorize the IoT applications, that is things that collect the information and then send it. And the second category can be the things that receive the information and then process on it. And the third one is things that do the both, that is collect the information and process and receive the information, so and send the information. So everything together consolidated as a other category. So how actual IoT works in the part of that is using the sensor or devices and the connectivity areas and the data processing side and the user interface. So for among all the four areas, that is sensor, connectivity, data processing, user interface, which one is the most important is the PCB enables all these processes. I think someone has unmuted the audio. Yeah, thank you. So PCB enables all these four process for making the IoT system or product the complete solution. So everything is all about the flexibility and the high-speed connectivity, which involves in the IoT applications. So what drives IoT? The main thing is people's interest on new devices, or otherwise consumer demand, which is most of the consumers prefer the smaller, lighter, and faster devices. And as a demand for more IoT devices rise, the understanding of interconnection between the IoT and PCB is crucial for PCB designers. So PCB designer plays a major important role in designing the IoT product or application. And some of the form factors I have listed here. The main thing is the connectivity, and subsequently we follow some of the other important categories like reliability and high standards and security. There should be a security, otherwise data can be misused or miscommunicated among the devices, and which leads the performance efficiency down. And the size and flexibility, of course, weight, cost, and finally the most important thing is the electromagnetic interference and compatibility levels which the IoT product has. And of course, in commercial terms, we need to have the time to market. So everything together makes the challenge for an IoT device. So in the IoT device, we can definitely need a communication between the device and the other internet options. So that can be wired or wireless communications. In case of wired communication, WAN, wide area network, and MAN, LAN, PAN. So all those things can be used in the case of thing. So in case of wireless, depending upon the data range or data length, distance, we can use the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, other Zigbee, and other wireless connections that the designer has to choose depending upon the application. So the main things, the connectivity challenges are the technology we use for the connectivity purpose, and the power consumption, of course, and the compatibility of the device. So typical wearable devices examples can be, so wearable devices are a subset of the IoT product. So nowadays, the Google Glass and other smart watches and conducting electrodes, capacitive coupling things, or all those are the wearable devices, which is the subset of the IoT products. So some of the top 10 things are smartphones. That is, applications are smartphones, wearable devices, smart city, smart farming, smart chain supply, and smart retail, connected health care applications, connected car, industrial automations, and other products are the top 10 applications of this IoT product. So we'll go to the PCB part in the IoT applications. So as we discussed, the PCB plays a major role of any IoT product which is inside the IoT system or the product. So this PCB can be the flexible type or rigid type or rigid flux combination type, and HDI, that is high density PCB methods, that provides the design freedom for the designers to create the product. So we'll see the brief introduction of each and every technology which is involved in IoT PCBs. So first, we'll go for the flex PCB. So the name itself indicates the PCB is flexible. Which is the PCB is made up of the flexible base material. So definitely there will be a copper clad for the connectivity or tracing purpose, that is signal transmission purpose, and the copper can be implemented, that is etched on the flexible base material of the PCB. So this flexible design can be up to we can say in average you can the nominal layers can be 1 to 10 layers, and depending upon the complexity of the circuit. So there can be a gold plating and solder mask can happen to avoid the dampness on the outside environment. So this is the you can see the left hand side, the flexible PCB image. So as you see, you can bend the circuit and we can install in the product which is very flexible in nature. So in the top right corner, so there is a rigid board. That is, so you can see this part of the board is rigid and this part of the board is rigid. So these two boards are connected. Instead of the connector, we can use the flexible PCB connections. This creates a major impact on the signal integrity in case of high impedance, high speed frequency range of boards. So this connector, elimination of this connector will definitely imply the inductance effect and other subsequent effects, which is affected, which is going to be affected by the signal transmission part. So this is the PCB material, that is polyamide or the polyester roll we can take, and this is available with a 250 roll as a roll. So the width is restricted, so we have to decide the board size depending upon this flex material available in the market. So you can see the stiffener, that is the end. This is the flexible part of the board, and the end of the board is connected to the connector, which is going to be sitting on some other portion of the system. So to make the connection stiffener, so we have to have the stiffener under this contacts. So that is one of the major part which has to be decided by the designer. So typical flex PCB cross section can be like this. So this is a 2-layer board. So you can start from the mid. That is, this is the polyamide laminate upon which the 2 copper layers are laid. After that, the cover layer is nothing but the masking of the copper layer from the outside environment, and above which the polyamide cover layer also is laid. So this is a typical 2-layer cross section of the flexible PCB. So there can be different types of flexible PCB, like single-sided, double-sided, multi-sided. So each and every thing has the IPC standard 6013, type 1, type 2, type 3. So this IPC defines the Indian packaging and connected. That IPC is a standard which is exclusively for the PCB design domain. So there are various standards available for this category. So exclusive for the flexible PCB, there is 6013. So you can refer the standards for each and every attributes which is going to be sit on the flexible PCB. And the other category we see is rigid flex PCB, where the portion of the PCB is rigid and the other portion of the PCB can be flexible. So you can see the polyamide cover. There's a polyamide material is a flexible material. Here the FR4 or the rigid materials can be used for the stiffing purpose. So depending upon the maximum current carrying of the signal, we have to choose the trace width and other parameters in the PCB design area. So for example, if you are using if you are using the maximum current as 0.6 amps, so we need to have the resistance, conductor resistance about 640. So we have to choose the conductor width as 0.01 mil. So depending upon the current carrying capacity of the trace or signal, we have to choose the copper width of the PCB, which is used for the transmitting the signal. There are some other standard materials, that is base PCB materials such as polyamide, polyester, and other adhesiveless material, flameless retardant. So these are all the materials which can be used for the PCB design, flex PCB design. So the base copper thickness can be 0.15 ounce or 1 ounce. So this we have to select based on the standards and the application environment. And of course, the solder mask can be of 3 categories: polyamide cover lay, polyester material and photo imageable material. So these three also, it's depending upon the standards we can choose for the application. And surface finish, so there are many types of surface finish technologies are available. So this also it can be implemented in the flexible PCB material by manufacturing. And so the multi-layer flexible circuits definitely are the best suit for the flexible circuits. Multi-layer flexible PCB selection, that is, so which definitely reduces the EMI and RFI interference, and the control impedance with shielding can be done effectively in the case of flexible multi-layer flexible circuitries. And of course it reduces the amount of board size, and you can fit into the small in area. So there are many design options are also available for the designers to select. So we can choose based on the application side, rigid flex or exclusively flex, with stiffener or without stiffener, and selective bonding type, and circuit forming. So we can make the different kinds of bending nature, and we can make the different kinds of factory formed circuits follow to give the tight curves to save the space, and wave soldering carrier type we can select. So these are all depending upon the applications and the design options for the designers. And some other things are, we can select the surface mount components inside the flexible material. And if you want to give the shielding, you can provide the shielding with the help of the ground plane pouring technique or technology. And you can use a pins for connection. You can use the coils using the flexible materials. Of course, the connector, this is one of the most important applications. Instead of wiring, we can use the connectors for making this application. And of course, the heaters and thermal temperature resistors sensors. So these are all the various design options which can be done using this technology. And another most important portion is the terminators. That is, terminators that, of course, this flexible PCB has to connect with some other system. So that can be used that can be with the help of connectors, fingers, or pins. So these three are the term we call as the terminators. So this is used for the very several applications. So we can see the connector. It is ZIF connector, zero insertion force connector, which can be directly inserted with other adapters or some other systems. So this can be connected using the flexible material, polyamide like polyester, other PCB based material. Some of the high density connectors are shown here. So it is a very complex thing. So you can see from here up to here, there is a flexible material. So that is, we can bend the tape. It's a tape like thing, and we can install the connector here with the help of the stiffener in the beneath of the PCB, and directly you can. This is called as this can be connected with the other mounting device like a system or other thing. So this is very efficiently used instead of making the individual wired connections. So you can see other pins. This is another type of connector, and round form connectors, and mil-spec connectors with temperature rating up to 200 degrees Celsius. So these are all some of the high density connectors which can be connected to the flexible PCBs. So this is another kind of terminators like fingers. This is the type of connector only, but it is called as fingers, where the fingers can be directly inserted to the other equipment. And another type of terminators can be as pins like structure, like it can be the socket pins. So this can be arranged in the staggered manner or the regular manner. So the flexible circuits can interface the hardboards via the solder pin joints. So the number of types of pins can be shown here. The pins can be soldered or they joined together with the flex bit material in the edge of the flex bit material, so that it can be terminated with the other systems. Another kind of flexible material application is the flexible coils, making the flexible coil circuits. So this eliminates wiring errors, and it is rugged, and this design usually guarantees to reduce the package size. That is the major advantage of this flexible coil. So this is the uh, uh, typical specifications, like space width and trace width, and so these are all the main the specification details to be followed while designing the flexible PCB design. So some of the applications of the flexible PCBs are, it is widely used in the space saving applications, flexibility, where we need the flexibility and less weight. So these are all the top things which has to be considered while designing the while choosing the flex PCB design. And other common flexible PCB board is a computer keyboard, which can be rolled and placed while if it is not used, and it is definitely a weightless and space saving device. And passive wiring structures can be used in this technology, and flexible solar cells is another application which can be applied in the. So the important thing is the transmission line property impedance matching has to be done for the high speed signals. In case of high speed signal transmission, the impedance matching between the source and the receiver side has to be matched with the characteristics impedance of the circuit. Otherwise, there will be a return, definitely the return loss, and the electromagnetic interference can happen, due to which the radiated emission and conducted emission can happen. So the main factors to be considered for this impedance mismatch is the trace width selection and the dielectric material thickness and the width of the copper foil. So these three are the major factors which determines the impedance of the characteristics circuits. And some of the standards which normally follow for the flux PCB design, or the in the case of performance side, IPC 6011, 6012, 6013, and in the case of design side, 2221, 2222, 2223, and selection of material side 4202 and 4203. Of course, the 4204 are the typical design standards which defines the specifications of in each categories. Coming to the rigid flux boards, so as the name it indicates, flux PCB as complete flexible material, and rigid flux PCB has the a partial portion can be a rigid board, and the partial can be the flux thing. So the flux portion definitely eliminates the connectors which can be done as a wiring in the externally. So definitely the potential cost saving can happen, and it is a high reliability in case of harsh environmental conditions, and wiring errors can be eliminated, and more impedance discontinuities are reduced. So if you are using the external connector or external wires, there will be an impedance mismatch or impedance imbalance can happen due to this discontinuity. So this is the design, a completed design for the rigid flux in EDA tool. So you can see the left and right side of the square box is considered as a rigid material, and the flux portion is the in-between portion which connects these two boards efficiently without any impedance discontinuities. So this is a layer structure we used for this rigid flux board. So left side is the rigid number of layers or more compared to this flexible material. This flexible center side is a flexible material. So where two layers, that is in between the copper core, that is dielectric layer. So upon which the copper, upon which and the below which the copper layer can be, copper clad can be implemented for making the connection between these two flux, I mean these two rigid boards. So you can see the image on the right side. So how this can be bent, this flexible can be bent, and it can be installed using the mounting holes or other holes. So general materials, as we said, on the rigid side, we can use FR4 materials, and the flexible side, we can use a polymer or polyester material depending upon the temperature of the circuit, of the signal, which can withstand another installation criteria, everything. So the material selection and bending where we need to bend the circuit, so that early decisions has to be made clearly before start the design. So the general material and bending side, this is a typical layer stack up structure. In the case of, suppose in the case of a multi-layer board, so in between the center layer can be the flux core layer, that is polymer or polyester layer, upon which the acrylic is applied to have the to attach the copper clad, and above which one other polymer flexible structure can be implemented, and above which the copper can be implemented. So this is the 1, 2, 3, 4 layer flexible material, flexible PCB stack up, which is designed for this purpose. So you can see in between two copper layers, if in between any two copper layers, there will be one dielectric layer, which is of flexible material in the case of flux PCB. So as we discussed, the flux core is a flexible polymer material. So it can be typically 1 to 2 mil thickness. So mil is a 1/1000th of the inch. And other flexible, why we choose the flux core material is dimensional stability, and for flexible flexibility and dielectric isolation. Definitely between two coppers, we need to have the isolation, because otherwise the copper can get shorter, and the thermal characteristics and environmental use. So adhesives are used. You can see in the stack up. So adhesives can be applied upon the copper layer. So this is a crucial part of the flexible PCB design. So this definitely has nothing but a bondings that the conductor to the substrate, and the thickness and the type need to be well defined based on the application. So this can be acrylic or epoxy. The thickness we can choose 0.5 to 1 ml. So we have to discuss with the manufacturers. So for the possibilities, and other adhesiveless flux cores are also available, so that can be used for copper plating deposition directly to the core, and it reduces the thickness and adds the flexibility and less peeling strength it has. And bending side, we need to clearly identify where we need to bend the board. So in case of a complete, if in the case of high thick copper plate, that is copper layer. So if you bend the thing, the compression and tension can happen in the 90-degree bend area. So we have to avoid that. We have to have the clear copper thickness. We have to select the copper thickness, as well as the copper pore area can be complete. It can be a hashed area, or so various technologies can be applied to avoid the compression and tension area. Another rule of thumb is of the bending side. So if it is a single layer board, the flexible thickness into 6 times you can bend. And similarly, in case of 2-layer board, so double layer board, flexible thickness into 12 times it can be done. And multi-layer board, the flexible thickness thickness of the PCB into 24 times it can be bent. So this is the general rule. And this is a typical multi-layer board which bonds between two rigid boards. So this is another it is otherwise called bookbinding or the staggered layer bands. That is, this is nothing but the connectivity purpose only. So instead of giving the whole flexible area, so we are giving the partial side, so that the bending portion can be efficient. And if you are considering the rigid flex board, so rigid portion, the junction of the rigid and the flex portion can be with the minimal radius. So instead of giving the straight 90-degree thing, so to make the ease of bending, we can use some of the maximum or minimum or nominal radius using this kind of structure. Similarly, you need to overlap the at least for 0.05 inch between the rigid and flux portion, so that the strength of the board can be better. And making the connection, that is routing, can be done between the rigid and the rigid boards using the flux PCB. So this you can use the longer radius traces. Otherwise, if you are using the 90-degree traces, if you are bending thing, so the copper may get tear. So similarly, if you are using the vias in between the bending portion, it has to be clearly properly selected. Otherwise, the board, that flexible portion will lead to issues. And if you are using the mounting hole or other holes, we have to have the clear distance between the copper signal with the holes. And in case of 2-layer PCB, the routing can be taken. So you can see if this is the 1-layer board and this is the 2nd-layer board. So the routing can be taken like if you are taking the trace from here, this is the cross section shown here. So if you are taking the traces here in the immediate copper layer, you cannot take the copper trace here. So you can shift the copper trace from the when compared to the first layer. So this avoids the crosstalk between the signals. So as we said, the copper plane in the center portion can be cross-hatched polygon. Like cross-hatched copper can be used for this bending portion. Another kind of failures that can happen because of this connectivity issue, like the component and the trace can be, if you are connecting like this, so there can be a wear and tear because of this less contact area. So if you are using the curved portion like this, so you'll get the better connectivity. So the next technology is high density interconnect. So this is one of the other type of PCB technology can be implemented for IoT applications. So the name itself indicates the high density per unit area of the PCB. So this is which is different from the conventional PCB. So per unit area, the circuit portion circuit density, that is circuit complexity, can be implemented with a specified thing. So using the micro vias and blind buried vias and other vias, etc. So these are all the alternative techniques to avoid the high layer count PCB. So we'll see in brief what it is. So the main advantage of using this high density interconnect PCBs are impedance control, high frequency transmission capability, and reduce unnecessary radiation. So this kinds of PCBs are implemented in iPhone, mobile phone, and other iPads, like so where there is a high frequency applications with a small amount of area. I mean, with the minimal device area. So you can see how the high density can be implemented in this. So the high density means, as we saw, within the lesser space, there is more amount of circuit can be drawn in the particular thing. So how we can use the minimum via, like 150 150 micron via can be used for this connectivity purpose instead of the regular vias. So most of the techniques of the high density techniques, such as blind buried vias, and using this blind buried vias, definitely the power consumption and higher performance can be achieved. And some of the advantages are the speed and reliability, reduced size and weight, high frequency handling, improved cost and effectiveness. So these are all the main advantages we see for the HDA things. So what are the common layout practice we follow? The power analysis and the PCB stack up, grounding, and stitching vias. So these are all the important criteria which minimize the noise or interference in the case of high speed signal category. So coming to the power analysis, usage will fluctuate throughout the day, as we know, and have a clear projection of power consumptions over the target lifetime of the product. This is especially important when devices are the battery powered category. And how the PCB stack up influence this performance. So this definitely stack up is extremely important for the RF signals and the thermal performance. This is to avoid the problems with signal transmission and power delivery, antenna fields, and many more applications. And coming to the grounding side, the grounding area is usually very limited for small devices. So we need to provide the particular perfect grounding for the signal return path. Otherwise, if the return path is not correct, so there will be a displacement current, or other due to that there will be the emission, conductive emission can happen. So care must be taken to provide proper grounding for thermal dissipation and the RF performance. Stitching vias. So this is another technology can be adopted for the layout side of the HDI board for the proper return current, and which will reduce the noise interferences. So major three terminologies we use for this HDI connection, HDI board. So one is a blind via. Blind via is nothing but a hole that is drilled, which is drilled between the PCBs. I mean, within the PCBs. So blind via represents the contacting of an outer layer end and an inner layer beginning. So it will connect the top layer to the innermost layer. And the buried vias, it is a through hole which is drilled on the core layers. So you can see, you can use the buried vias in between internal layers only. It cannot contact the inner layer, whether it's top layer or the bottom layer. So micro vias are nothing but vias which is very small in nature compared to the blind and buried vias, and which is less than 150 micron in diameter. So you can see, so this is a cross section of the PCB, HDI PCB, where this is a total drill, which is drilled from the top layer to the bottom layer. So in between there are copper layers available, and this copper so second layer and third layer and fourth layer and the bottom layer can be attached to this via. And this is a after drilling the vias, the holes of the walls are plated, so to get the proper connectivity. So here this drills or the vias are not plated, which is non-plated through hole. And we saw the blind and buried vias, right? So the blind vias are the connection vias which is connected between the top and the immediate layers. So this is blind via. And buried via, so this is also a blind via. So in the buried vias, the vias which can be connected between, that is vias or holes which is connected between the internal layers. So because of this, we eliminate the we can get the more real estate for this component placing or the connection making. So this is the high density portion uh, which can be used for this. And some other standards available for the high density micro vias. So you can see that there are staggered vias and stacked vias and micro vias and other. So this is a total through hole vias, and this is the blind buried vias, blind vias. So these are all the vias technology, and which has the standards. Like if you take this inner layer clearance, that is this. If you take this micro via, so the diameter of this via, that is hole, can be 0.125 micron. And the pad size can be 0.350 micron. So this is a standard can be placed on the PCB. So by applying this HDA techniques, we can reduce the PCB layer count, better signal integrity. So signal integrity is the efficiency of the signal which transfers from the receiver to the from the driver to the receiver. So this is the main thing which has to be taken care for the high speed signal transmission. In terms of gigahertz and several gigahertz. So, and manufacturing yield and board reliability can be improved. So what is signal and power integrity? How we can reduce the things in the high speed high density interconnect boards. So since we are not using the vias, through hole vias, regular vias, so there will be a definite reduction in the parasitic loads on the transmission side, and definitely it reduces the inductance of the power distribution network. So these are all the main thing which affects the impedance imbalance in the distribution network. So definitely, and other things are helps to limit the ripple and voltage drops across the terminals. So other standards used for the HDA are 2226 and IPC 6012D. Some of the tools used for the designing the HDI boards and flux boards and other PCBs are the Cadence. These are all the main players which are all in the market. So the Cadence, Mentor Graphics, Altium, and Zuken. So these EDA vendors provides the various types of modules of the PCB design and other signal and power integrity modules. So which using which we can measure and other we can design and measure the necessary parameters. Another important thing is the engineer, PCB engineer need to collaborate with the PCB, not only with the PCB designer. It has to be done a discussion with the mechanical designer and other electrical designer, so that the complete product can be achieved without any discrepancies. And meeting the challenge, IoT challenge, we can stay current to the trends, and the efficient of how most effect of the design is of the IoT design is. So these and other industrial focused automation areas, and flux and HDA methods, how we can implement. So these are all major typical challenges we face in the IoT industries. Another important criteria is EMI measurement and testing area. So how the EMI happen and how the testing can be done to measure the conductor and the radiated interference. So in the case of electromagnetic environment, so there can be three events that can take place. One is the emitter side and the susceptor side, and finally the conduction path. That is, the conduction path can be either metallic path or the non-metallic path. So there are four typical terminologies which has to be taken care, like RE, CE, CS, RS. RE means radiated emission, CE is conducted emission, and the susceptor side conducted susceptibility, and the radiated susceptibility. So the susceptor is a victim and the emitter is a source. So some of the source are the transmitters. This can be high speed logic and high frequency generators, power switches, inductive loads, and in case of transients, ESD, lightning. So these are all the examples of the emitters, which is highly unwanted emissions can happen because of this these devices present, and it has to be undergone for the EMI regulations. In the case of susceptor side, there can be receivers, analog circuits, digital circuits, of course a human being. So this which is low susceptibility threshold values, so this has to be recovered for this regulations. And the conduction side path side, so the metallic path can be the wires or the traces in the case of PCBs, and the coupling path, radiation side, the non-metallic path due to the radiation in the dielectric in the case of PCB, or the air in the case of wiring or the other signals. So these has to be taken care. And these are all the three environmental events, that is electromagnetic environment events we can see. So after designing the PCB, we can go for the simulation thing for measuring this electromagnetic interference levels. There can be three types of simulators available in the market. So one is electromagnetic simulator, the second is a circuit simulator, and the third is behavioral simulators. So the electromagnetic simulator can use the Maxwell's equations, and which solves the problems in that is electric and magnetic field problems at various locations, the given boundary conditions in time domain or the frequency domain. Whereas the circuit simulator, which solves the differential equations corresponding to the various circuits element with like Kirchhoff's current law and voltage law relationships, and to predict the voltage and current levels in the various nodes, and we can measure the S parameters out of this either in the time domain or the frequency domain. If you take the behavioral simulator, which uses the model based on the table and the transmission lines and other passive elements models based on the transfer functions, which is very quickly and predictable to the voltage and current at various locations, various node locations. Either this can be typically used for the time domain area. So there are major players for the EMI simulators. EM simulator tools are PowerSI, SIWave, CST, ANSYS, Ansoft, EMWorks, E3, Hyperlinks, 3D EM simulations, HFSS, EM Pro. So I use EM Pro for designing for measuring the conducted and radiated emissions, which is a Keysight Technologies product, and which is very helpful for my research work. Another software solution for this EMI issues are how after installing the software, we have to import the either we can design the same PCB or the same model inside the software, or we can design the things in other software and we can import into this tool. and we have to identify which nets, that is which signal is have the critical high speed component or high speed data transfer. So we have to identify and tag this thing into this software. And some of the critical nets are typically used as a for the clock signal, fast rise time, and data rate data signals, or so these are all some of the high speed signals which is very critical in nature. And also the critical components also we need to identify, that can be decoupling capacitors, filter components, and termination resistors. So after identifying all the things, we have to enter all the values, bit rate and other frequency range, and the domain of the domain to be solved, and everything we have to run for the simulation, which is a full wave simulation, and which helps to address the gray areas of these issues. And if you find any other gray areas, you can very well go back to this design, and you can change according to the result. And some of the hardware solutions for electromagnetic interference can be fabric over foam, and shielding, that is coaxial transmission line method, dual TEM cell method, rectangular waveguide methods, and nested reverberation chamber method, and shielding box method, shielding room method, free space method, etc. And this can be a common mode and a differential mode noise filter we can implement. And introduction of ferrite beads, and grounding, bonding, spatial placement of hardware, circuit topologies, modifications, and spreading the spectrum. This is some of the other hardware solutions which can be easily implemented upon after implementing this product level thing. And some of the standards for this electromagnetic interference are FCC, CISPR standards, that is Federal Communications Commission, which is followed by the US, and CISPR is used in International Special Committee for Radio Interference, that is European Union is using this CISPR standards, and IEC, International Electrotechnical Commission, and IEEE and other standards, etc., or the which is exclusively for this electromagnetic interference and compatibility level measurements. And for example, if you take the ESD level, so we need to check clearly for the standards like IEC 61004-2. In case of radiated immunity, IEC 61004-3. So similarly, for each and every test, we have the standards available. So these standards in the worldwide, the standards can be categorized into three types, that is generic standards, basic standards, and the product standards. So what does the basic standards defines? This defines the general considerations, defines the definitions, terms, and rules and regulations for emissions and immunity levels, or immunity testing and test methods. So this gives that overall rules and regulations, and the methods and instrumentation level calibration and etc. It gives the basic standards. Generic standards gives us the limits and maximum test levels for the products in a particular EMC environment, which has no EMC product standard exists. So product level standards which gives which defines the limits and maximum test level for a particular product. So either definitely for all the things we need to have the basic standard, and in case of specific product like defense or other applications, we need to there will be a product standard will be defined, and in case if it is not defined under the product standard, we have to follow the generic standards. So different countries across the world uses the different kinds of regulations like FCC, CE. So these are all the regulations are used by the various nations. Like India, we use BIS and ISI. Like so, these standards are these regulations will not define the standards, but the standard organizations like IEEE, IEC, CISPR. So these standard organizations will define the standards. We have to follow the standard and test the standards against in the laboratory, and after getting the test reports upon which the standard followed, and we have to apply for this market regulations. So so this is a two-way process. Like, we need to apply the regulation, market regulations, to sell the product commercially. So if you take any product, there has to be a test plan has to be followed, and the test plan of the product can be the characteristic test, product test, and the material durability test. So our electromagnetic inductance and the electromagnetic interference compatibility test follows under the category of characteristic test. So which is the electromagnetic compatibility level, and there are basic 5 tests has to be conducted. As we saw in the previous slides, we need to concentrate on the conducted immunity, radiated immunity, and conducted emissions, radiated emissions. After that, we have to test for a transient test like ESD, burst and surge, voltage dip, and magnetic field. So these tests has to be done in the EMI laboratories before releasing the final product. This can be IoT product or any other system or package. And why do we need for the testing, EMC testing? So this is definitely the reliability improvement and the prevention of rework and the potential hazardness to meet the regulatory requirement and to improve the product performance and to reduce the risk of the costly non-compliances, definitely to strengthen the market competitive position, and to safeguard the sensitive analog and RF circuitries, and finally to calculate the ESG levels. So for measuring this electromagnetic interference conduction levels, we need to have we can go with the simulation tools, and if the results are satisfied, we can go for the electromagnetic test laboratories. So these are all some of the test laboratories facilities available in the laboratories: 3-meter EMI chamber, 30-meter EMI chamber, and 10-meter EMI chamber. Depending upon the product size, we can utilize any of the chamber. And shielding room, RS chamber, that is radiator susceptibility chamber, and OATS, open air test site facility. So this open air test site facility is commonly set up in the case in the hilly areas where there will be any other communication interference, that is radiated radio frequency communication interference, or there will be any other signal spectrum which is available in this area. So and also depending upon your product implementation side, we can choose this area. So we can choose the chamber. This is typical semi-anechoic chamber. This is 10-meter, and this is the another setup slide, which clearly has this EUT, that is equipment under test, which is placed on the turnable table, and the antenna intentionally it sends and receives the electromagnetic interference, and the corresponding measurements can be taken outside this chamber, and we can calibrate the values out of this software. And this is a typical EMS RS chamber, and other radiated using this chamber we can measure the radiated susceptibility values, which is comes under the IEC 61004-3. And some of the OAT test sites, which is shown here. And some using this instruments, we are measuring this values like EMI test receiver, oscilloscope, spectrum analyzer, LISN, line impedance stabilization network set, and ESD generator, signal generator, network analyzer, antenna, and EFT surge generator. So these are all can be used, applied for in the test laboratories, which can be based on the time or frequency domain, we can choose the instrument, which is purely defined by the standards like basic standards. So these all equipments are commonly used available in performing the EMC measurements. So now, so because of this electromagnetic interference, so not only affects the proximity devices, electronic devices, it affects the human organs and tissues like nervous systems, visual system, immune systems. Nowadays, the immune system is very important to have because of this other pandemic thing. And so this electromagnetic, these are all the proven thing which is which this affects the human tissues, and a lot more things can be affected because of the electromagnetic field. So the importance of this measurement and the compatibility levels, maintaining the compatibility levels, is very essential in the case of electronic or electrical designers. So so with this I close this presentation, and after this I am going to I will give some introduction to the PCB terminologies which is used in the EDA tools, and I'll go and move on to this PCB design demo tool. So if you have any doubt, we will have on 5 minutes, or you can proceed with the other next presentation.
So, respected professors, if you have any clarifications so far, you can raise queries. You can interact with our ma'am. You shall also use the chat box to put your queries. No queries, it seems, ma'am.
So can I proceed with the next agenda?
Sure, ma'am. Please.
Yeah. Okay, so far we saw the how the IoT PCB applications, and how what technology can be used and what to be measured finally, that is like EMI and EMC compatibility levels. So this gives, I hope this gives the complete idea of this domain. And so I have small two presentations, like what is PCB design, and the second one is the what is the design flow which can be used for this PCB design, and the third part can be the demo of open source PCB design tool. So where I will create a simple PCB and I will show the thing. So before the break, I would like to finish this first presentation. So other two sections will be continued and after the break. So so this presentation agenda is about the PCB and the parts of the PCB and what are all the units to be used in the PCB, and PCB design considerations, subsequently the standards we follow for the designing PCB. And so PCB, as we know, which is the printed circuit board, which is made up of the fiberglass, composite epoxy, and other laminated materials. So the name itself, we can see the conductive parts are printed onto the board, and we can make the connections with between the components of the PCB, that is circuit. The components can be the transistors, resistors, ICs, FPGAs, BGAs, and whatever it may be. And the tracks, that is traces, or the connections, you can see in the below diagram. So between these two holes, there are one connections are drawn. One connection is established. So this is called the copper line, or as a technical term, we have to tell it as the tracks or traces. Okay. Then the board material here is shown here is FR4, that is rigid board of material. In case if you are selecting the PCB as a flexible board material, you can select the polyimide and other polyester depending upon your temperature withstanding capability. So, so the main part of the PCBs, we can say, like components, pads, traces, vias, and layers. So components, as we know, any electronic components that is meant here. So the electronic components can be a lead component or leadless component. So leadless component can be called as a SMD, that is surface mount device or surface mount technology component. So here the conventional component is leaded component. So here it is shown here is the two terminal leaded component, where the lead can be inserted into the PCB and PCB with the help of the hole, and we can solder the component in the back side of the PCB. So another type is the surface mount component. So where the surface of the device, the bottom side of the surface of the component has the contact pads, contact areas, which can be directly inserted. That is, which can be directly, you can say that it has to be pasted onto the PCB, where the same amount of copper pad size can be implemented or designed on the printed circuit board. And this for the same amount of the value of the component, that is for example, if you are using the 100K resistor, in case of through hole, the size you can compare, which is if you take the 100K ohm resistor for surface mount, so these both has a drastic area of the surface area can be reduced in the case of surface mount. So because of the real estate problems, we can use this surface mount components. So, and another major use of the surface mount components is in the case of high PCB design and high data transfer rate signal areas, where there is a definitely we need to have the signal integrity issues. So this lead capacitors, leaded capacitor will have the lead inductance effect, which affects the impedance mismatch, and it turns the signal integrity, jitter, and other issues can happen due to this imbalance in the characteristics impedance. So because of that, so this we use the leadless component, and other more advantages over the leadless components. So this is a typical through hole component and other chip capacitors. These are all the various types of packaging technology which is available in the market for the components. And this is via steps. So we discussed the previous presentations for the through hole vias, the blind via and buried via, and the micro vias. So this is considered as a through hole via, where the holes can be we can access the holes. That is, via is a vertical interconnect access. So here the walls of this vias, that is holes, are plated with the copper foil plating, copper foil and the plating. So if you take the vias, via it is considered as a hole, through hole vias. That is, from the top to bottom it is getting connected. So in case of blind via, either it connects the top layer in the inner layer, or it connects the bottom layer with the corresponding immediate layer. So in between layer connection can be called as a buried vias. So the next component, next part of the PCBs are pads. So pads are nothing but the copper pattern. So where we insert the component, or we can access the copper pattern for the connection purpose. And you can solder the component onto the pads, and pads can be round and rectangular or square in shapes. Depending upon the component lead size or the SMD LAN size, so we can generate the pad size according to the nature, and the pads will connect to the traces. I will show the what is pads and what is traces in the later slide. And traces or tracks. So as I said earlier, the connection between the pins, that it is called the wires or traces or tracks. So wires we can call in the case of external connection. So in the case of PCB connection, it is called as tracks or so between the pads, the tracks are connected. So this is, as I said, is equivalent to the wire for connecting the signals. Trace sometimes connects to the vias also, and high current traces will be in wider in width. And for example, power and ground traces, if you're taking the connections for the power and ground, so that we need to have the clear wider width to withstand the current carrying capability. And the signal traces usually narrower in nature compared to the power and ground trace. So the process of making connection is called the routing. So routing, as we discussed, the routing can be done between two pins or two components. So here you can see the round in shape is called pads, where you can install the components or whatever it may be, connectors or whatever it may be. So this red color red color copper portion shows the traces. So making the connection is called the routing. So this is the process. So in the routing, suppose if we need to take the trace in between the pads, so you cannot take this. In this case, we cannot take the complete trace as a same width. So we since if you take the trace with same as this here, what happens? The pads of the pad copper and the trace copper will get shorter, or will get very nearer to each other. So because of that, there will be a signal loss can happen, or signal short can happen. So because of that, we can reduce the trace width, and that is called neck down, and we can take the traces internally for the short portion alone. Here the traces are typical component connections are shown here. So before making the PCB, we need to create the components, and we have to place the components, and we need to establish the connections as per the circuit diagram. So these rubber band lines are called rat's nest. So this defines the connection between pins. So for example, if you take the red color line, so this red color rubber band line it is actually connected from this pin and here, and after that this component, and so it goes on like this. So the same signal is connected connected among the various components. So this is called a net or a signal, complete same signal. This is otherwise it is called the net. So the complete connection information is called rat's nest. So single connection which connected between the components are called net. So the connection between the components can be routed in the regular manner. We have to follow the 45 degrees between the line. So this angle of degree is 45, or this can be 135 degrees for the smooth signal to flow. This picture shows the right side picture shows the bad diagram of bad routing conditions. So where you'll have the acute angle, which affects the signal flow. So in this slide, we shows the terminologies, basic terminologies for the routing purpose. So this is we need to consider the trace width, that is copper trace width, and the distance between the trace and pad, that is a circular pad, is called the trace to pad gap, and the center portion is called hole, that is drill, uh, and the outer portion is called the land size or pad size. So this is the pad, this is copper pattern upon which the drill is drilled on the center of the pad, and the pad to pad distance also has to be maintained for the particular level, for depending upon the standard. And this is the red line shows the board outline. So the board outline to copper distance also we have to maintain. That is called track to edge, track to board edge distance. And this is the non-plated hole, which is used for the mounting purpose. There is holes of the walls are not plated, so that is why it is called non-plated hole. And the non-plated hole to the copper distance also has to be maintained. So that is called track to NPTH distance. So these are all the settings we have to make in the EDA tools. So that is the reason I have given here. And the fourth part is can be vias, that is vertical axis, interconnect axis, vertical interconnect axis. So the vias we saw, the through hole vias, blind and buried vias, and micro vias. So vias are nothing but pads which has a drill and which is mainly used for interconnecting the pads traces, using the traces. So using this vias, we can switch from one layer to another layer for in the case of multiple layer PCB. And so, as I said, vias are nothing but pads which connects the traces, and we need to attempt minimizing the vias. So, which we having the more via number of vias, which in the case of high speed PCB designs, which gives the inductance effect, via inductance effect. So because of that, we need to minimize this via count. And some of the components leads also can be used as vias, which for the soldering purpose. So this is the cross section of the vias where can see the copper capture pad, that is pads of the on the pads vias are drilled, and the vias holes are drilled, and the holes of the vias are plated for the making the better connections. And layer side, we have, as we saw, the PCB can be single layer, two layer, and multi-layer board. And the layers can be, for the in case of multi-layers, we have to have this corresponding layer stack up. Like whatever you see is the top metal layer, that is metal layer, top layer, and the bottom layer will be there. In case of two-layer PCB, top and bottom layer will be there. And in case of multi-layer, there will be some internal layers like signal, power, and ground layers. So upon this top layer, there will be a top mask layer. So the mask layer which covers the entire board to prevent the external dampness or external short or whatever it may be to this copper layer, top metal copper layer. And this is purely non-conductive material. Mask is a non-conductive material, which you might have seen the PCBs in the with green in color. So the green color represents the mask layer, and the mask above the mask layer there will be silk layer, which is a pure text layer. Text is this represents the each and individual component designator. This helps the assembly and as well as the troubleshooting purpose. And similarly, in the bottom side, below the bottom layer, there will be the bottom mask layer, and of course the bottom silk layer. In case if you are placing the components in the bottom layer, there will be a silk in the bottom layer too. So silk screen we saw, the printed silk screen is a text which is printed on the solder mask for designating the components. It should be legible and it should be readable. It should not touch with other component materials or other copper materials, and it is, as we said, it is helpful in assembling, testing, and servicing of the circuit boards. So here the green color and the red color shows the mask layer, and the white color, that is V++, like the text is shown here, is the silk layer. The silk layer is used for the assembling purpose, troubleshooting purpose, and everything. So without silk, you can imagine how we can install this component. And the solder mask is, as we discussed, it is used to protect the copper layer, copper traces, which is outer layers from the corrosion or other. So copper is a material which easily get corroded with the air, moisture in the air. And again, solder mask is depending upon the temperature withstanding capability of this board. We can select the various types of solder mask technologies available. And board material side, we used to have the coarse copper foils and pre-peg materials. So you can see the pre-peg, like so this center portion of the board material, and above which the two copper layers are implemented. So this corresponding is called copper core, and if this constrains the 2-layer board. So if you want to increase the 4-layer board, upon the copper layer, upon the core copper, you have to implement a pre-peg layer, which is non-conductive material, that is dielectric material. And another, upon the pre-peg material, you can have the copper clad material, so that you can arrange in the like 4-layer board. So the number of layers of the PCB definitely an even number. So we have to have the symmetry in between the layers. So this is a cross section of this material. So copper core, center portion is FR4 or polyimide material, and above which you have to have the pre-peg, and the copper foil can be implemented. Similarly, the bottom side also. So here you can see the 2 ounce copper inner layer and the copper inner layer. So in between the core is implemented, and above which the pre-peg and the solder mask, signal layer and mask layer, and after that we are installing the component. So this is a typical multi-layer cross section is shown here. So here you can see middle layer, that is the ground layer, is connected using this via. So this is the ground via, the ground trace, which is connected to the internal plane layer. So since the vias walls are plated, so we can easily get the connections if you take this, if you take the connection from here. So that is the concept. So this is a typical 8-layer board stack up shown here. So for each and every individual copper layer in between, we have to have the dielectric or core material, that is dielectric material, to avoid the short. And the via concept is, if you consider the 4-layer board, like so this is a 1 layer, 2nd layer, 3rd layer, 4th layer. So only the vias are shown here. So if you drill the vias, that is, if you have the drill and if you plate the holes of the via walls, the structure will look like this. So for example, if you are taking the via connection from here to here and here to here in the same first layer, and the second connection can be from here to here, and you need to connect this via to this via, but it is not possible to cross this connection as this is a copper line which is already taken for this connection. To avoid this cross, we need to switch the layer from layer 1 to layer 2. So since the vias are plated, so we can get the access from the second layer in the same pad. So you can see very well, you can connect this these two vias and establish the connection. Similarly, you can see from this via to this via is connected. As we cannot take the connection from in the top layer, the second layer, immediate second layer, we are taking the connections and making the nets complete. So this is the purpose of via, which is used for the to reduce the PCB size. And units we use for this designing the PCB is imperial and metric units. and 1 inch is equal to 25.4 mm. So some of the countries use the mm unit, and the, countries like US and Europe uses the English units like inch and mil. So mil is the 1/1000 of an inch. 1 mil is equal to 1/1000. That's 0.001 inch. So in the Asian and European, Asian and countries like India and other China and Japan uses the mm unit. So some of the industrial standards are IPC standards for board level, and there will be the IPC standards for assembly level also. So depending upon the specification, we need to follow the particular standards. And so depending upon the performance of the circuit, we can classify into 3 classes, like class 1, class 2, class 3. So all the boards can be classified into 3 classes. So class 1 boards are the generic electronic products where the cosmetic imperfections are not important. And the class 2 case, dedicated service electronic products like communication equipment, instruments, and military equipments where certain cosmetic imperfections are allowed. And the class 3 is very highly reliable electronic products, which includes equipment for commercial and military products where we have to have the continuous performance monitoring system. So there will be the heavy tight standards for in the case of class 3. So depending upon your application, you can select either class 1, class 2, class 3 of the standard. So IPC defines the all the class for the particular environment category. So as we saw, the board types can be single layer, double layer, multi-layer with or without blind and buried vias, with blind vias, with metal core, without blind vias. So these are all the various things which types of the PCB which can be decided. And other types of PCB based on the technology can be rigid boards and flux boards, rigid flux boards, as we saw in the first presentation. So the rigid boards can be rigid in nature, and the flux PCB can be flexible, uses the flexible material in which is flexible in nature. And rigid flux can be a combination of rigid and flux, so which is mainly used for the connectors or replacing the terminator purpose. So which improves the signal integrity conditions. So with this, I close this presentation. So it's already 11, going to be 11:05. So if you have any questions, we'll discuss. So next will be the PCB design flow and the demo. So if you have any questions, we'll have it now.
There is a question, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, I having doubt about how we access buried vias. How to access buried vias? Yeah, buried vias.
Buried vias. Okay, I'll tell you. So in this structure, if you take all the vias I have shown here is actually a through hole vias. Okay, so if you want to have the buried via, you cannot define this via from the top to bottom. So for example, so this portion alone, that is from the first layer to the second layer, so can be accessed only through the we have to define using the tools actually. So in the case of the first layer to the second layer, it is called as a blind via, and the buried vias can be, you can imagine, without this connection. So this from this here, second layer to the third layer, so this connection can be named as a buried via. Okay, so for example, if you don't have this connection and this connection, so this center portion alone is considered as a buried via. Okay, so I would like to use this first layer, that is this real estate. So by eliminating this connection, okay, so I can if I don't have this via, I can use this space for making the connection, right? So I am using the buried vias only to the second and third layer. Okay, then for example, if this connection I am taking here, and I am connecting from here, and in the second layer I can connect from the through hole to the buried via. So like that way you can access the buried via. Are you clear with this answer? So directly you cannot connect with the through hole via. So I mean, directly you cannot access the buried via. Using the through hole via, you can access the buried via in the in between layer. So that is what I would like to stress.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I think the person understood the thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, I can understand, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, shall we have a break for 15 minutes?
Yes, sir, 15 minutes. So at what time should I join?
11:30.
11:30. Okay, sir.
We shall be here by 11:30.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
So, dear all, I request all to have a break now. We'll resume back in the same meeting room by 11:30. Thank you.